evening for board members, the legal circumstances by which we can conduct the business of the zoning board. And then I can put it to each of you who are here this evening on behalf of your application, or if you're here representing someone on behalf of your client's application. And we can extend every courtesy we can in light of the circumstances. It seems that Mr. Delisle is going to be delayed by at least 15 minutes, possibly 20, which raises a convenience issue as well. I want to make sure that we give you the opportunity to exercise. So with that, Ms. Sullivan, I guess if it's 7 o'clock, I'm going to go ahead and we're going to start the recording, formally open the hearing, even though it feels like it's just us. I will go through the formalities that we typically do, and once we're on the record, I'll jump right in.
Yep, we have Larry Kinta and Ken Swanton joining us.
Great. Okay. Again, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Rob Ciampetti. I'm the Zoning Board of Appeals Chairman. I want to just take a moment and go through our quick agenda, sort of oversight of what we're going to be doing. I'd like to introduce this evening our board members who are in attendance either remotely or here in the room. We have remotely, we have Mr. Ken Swanton. We also have Mr. Larry Ginta. Both of those members, Mr. Ginta and Mr. Swanton, are on Zoom, so they are participating. They're able to deliberate in real time. This device in front of me, if you're not familiar with it, is called the OWL, and it records, projects, and broadcasts audio and video in real time, and it will hone in on voices so it knows who's speaking and when. So that allows anyone who's remote to participate as best one can remotely, as though they're in the room. To go over sort of the layout of this evening, as I mentioned a moment ago, we have an absent member of Ms. Lynn Scow, which leaves us a critical and yet to arrive soon to be present member, Mr. Stephen Delisle, who's our secretary. He is, as I mentioned, running about 15 to 20 minutes late, which leads me to our options, which I'll go over with you. Opening the hearing, I'll just take the roll, we'll establish who's here, and then I'll just go over with everyone what our choices are and let you tell me what your thoughts are, whether you'd like to continue to our next hearing, which is wider open and it's for 2 weeks. We can go from there. So calling the roll of the Newburyport Zoning Board of Appeals. Just for a moment, I'm going to introduce to my immediate right, Ms. Caitlin Sullivan, our city planner, and we have Ms. Gretchen Joy, our keeper of the minutes. Calling the roll of Newburyport Zoning Board of Appeals. Mr. Stephen Delisle is yet to arrive. Mr. Ken Swanton.
Here.
Larry Ginta.
Present.
Rob Ciampetti, I'm present. Our other members are absent. So that is 3 members at the moment, which is not yet a quorum. We're required to have at least 4. But since we are awaiting the arrival of our quorum member, let me just tell you on the record what we have. So going through each of the applications this evening, we have the first application before us, which is 8 Brown Avenue. That matter's been continued and that matter's been withdrawn without prejudice. So we're going to follow the agenda if we have a quorum member. We have 234 Merrimack Street, Mr. Nicholas Laundrie, and we have Mr. Charles Griffin at 10.5 Auburn Street. And we have Cindy L. Singer Revocable Trust, 5 Basin Street. So of the applications that are in the room this evening, let me start with 234 Merrimack Street. And Mr. Laundrie, do you have a preference on what you'd like to do this evening?
I think we wouldn't be able to vote right now anyway.
Right now we aren't, but I'm gonna, as soon as we sort of get an initial temperature of the room, I'm gonna take a pause. I'm going to essentially just, we'll take what I'll call a recess, a temporary recess for 15 minutes. But I want to make sure before I do that and sort of, tether you all to have to wait around for 15 or 20 minutes. I want to see, is there anyone who just might like a continuance so that they don't have to wait for a late arrival? But for right now, assuming that Mr. Delisle arrives in 15, 20 minutes, what would be your inclination for this?
Well, I feel like there's some people that might be here for it, and I don't want to, I mean, can we
Yeah, just,
please present and then maybe decide to continue it?
well, we can't present it, we wouldn't want you to present it until we have.
Yeah.
To a remember, but if we, if we have just a minimum board, or you intend on proceeding either way, if we have a quorum, which is our fourth member, in 15 minutes, let's say, you would have the right to proceed, and you would just need to have unanimity in vote, which you would need to have all four of us vote in the affirmative. If that's okay, then we can proceed, you would present, we would conduct the hearings.
Present. Could we decide to continue it, or do we have to go to a vote?
We have to do a vote, but
It seems like, are you guys here for 2:30? Yeah. If you'd like, we can present. If you're here.
well, and so by presenting, that's just one of the 4 seconds for, so we would open in the application, hear from you on behalf of the applicant, then we would go to public comment. We would certainly take any public comment. If we were to continue when we came back, we would likely revisit public comment. We would certainly give you as an applicant representative the opportunity to add anything.
Sure.
So there's that efficiency piece. Some folks are just intent on saying, hey, we're in for a penny, we're in for a pound, we'll do it all at once. If you choose to kind of break it up, that's up to you. I appreciate you sharing that sense. Let me just go around the rest of the room if I could. Mr. Griffin, who's here on behalf of Mr. Griffin's application?
He's online.
Mr. Griffin, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
So I suspect you heard everything up to now. We have right now 3 members, which is not yet a quorum. We're waiting for Mr. Delisle, who's on a train, on a slow train from Boston. His ETA is best case 7:15, worst case 7:25. Do you have a preference on whether you'd want to proceed with a minimum board, assuming you're willing to wait for his arrival?
Mr. Chair, I'm fine either way. I'm prepared to
Okay.
go ahead tonight, but it's not a big hardship to wait 2 weeks.
Okay, well, we'll take, we're gonna circle back on this because it's all dependent on when Mr. Delisle gets here, and I'm gonna text him in a minute, kind of see where his train is. Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Griffin, and on behalf of the Cindy Singer Revocable Trust, Attorney Lisa Meads, Mead, Talbot and Costa LLC, counsel. What would you like to do?
I would love to go to court tonight.
Okay, either way.
Yeah.
Very good. A fairly good sense. That's 5 Basin Street. What I'm going to do then, before we get started and begin any work, we're gonna take a recess until 7:15, well, I'll say 7:20, unless Mr. Delisle arrives sooner. I'm gonna text him. I'll invite you to certainly feel free to stay in the room, walk about if you'd like, don't go far. If you're intent on moving forward, so are we. And so we'll try to get the business done of CBA that you came here this evening to attend. So we'll get this done as best we can if we can. So I'll text Mr. Delisle and I'll circle back with everyone just a few minutes as soon as we know more. All right, so we're on recess at the moment until 7:20, which is 10 minutes. Thank you all.
So we're meeting for Yeah.
I want to just take a moment and interrupt you with good news. Mr. Lyle, as you can see, has arrived. So we are able to come off and continue and come off of recess and get right back into the business of this evening with everything that we discussed. We will, so I will just quickly add Mr. Delisle's attendance to our roll call. Mr. Delisle, are you present? Present, he is. Okay. So we have now 4 members present. We have Mr. Swanton, Mr. Ginta, Mr. Delisle, and myself. That is a minimum board, so we do have a legal board. We do have a quorum. The 4 voting members obviously are the only voting members here this evening, and that's just more legal criteria. So without further ado, we have one matter that's a request for a minor modification for Hillside Living. We're gonna do that one first, then we will get right into the first application on our agenda, which is 234 Merrimack Street, and follow the sequence of the other 2 in the order that we have on our agenda. So with that, we have in our business meeting, a request for a minor modification. Hillside, oh, I'm sorry, Gretchen,
It's okay, I didn't.
you've heard this a million times, right?
Yeah.
It's cut and paste. Thank you, by the way. Hillside Living, this is a minor modification. May we hear from, Hillside Living is represented? And if you could just give us your name and address again, though we know who our regulars are.
Yes, I'm David Hall. My office is at 2 Federal Street in Newburyport. And I'm here regarding Hillside. I'm going on year 8, I think. And as far as I understand, we are submitting this paperwork to the board. I'm unaware of, nor were Andy or Jennifer, anything specifically that the zoning board has to grant. Because with regards to zoning matters, we are not asking for waivers of any kind. We were before the planning board last week and were approved of what you see behind you now. So on this slide, take you through the history back in 2016, you have Hillside Ave. This is the last building we're building. And you can see we have parallel spaces. And we thought that that's the way to go. Then when we redid the plans in 22, we went to a perpendicular parking configuration off the street. Can you hear me okay?
Yes. And those of us on laptops, we're not ignoring the screen, and we've got it all up here as well. So I love that you guiding us through though from the visuals.
Okay, yeah. So on the minor mod tonight, the paperwork I'm submitting pertains to returning to the parallel parking configuration. No changes in total number of spaces. There's nothing that we're asking for from the board. The reason for this change is because we realized that it was very unwise not to have access to someone who is compromised health-wise with getting into a 2nd floor unit. This particular building is the only building on the hillside that was multi-level. That is, we in 2016 we had a 4-unit building on the hillside, 4-level building, excuse me. And these are the views of that building from Hillside Ave. If you go to the next slide, you will see that 2016, and then in 2022, it's a very tall building. So because access to the 2nd floor was poor or non-existent, and because I frankly really didn't like the design. Pretty awful, specifically because if you're on Cottage Court, it seemed far too tall relative to the street and our other buildings, and it would have cast very long shadows. If you go to the next slide, yeah. What we did was turned it into sort of a wedding cake step, so that instead of a very tall vertical face of, I think it was 40 feet, I can't remember exactly, we pushed the building back so that sunlight and the comfort of a pedestrian adjacent to this building would not feel overwhelmed. We also introduced a lot of glass, and importantly, we also integrated a large amount of greenery into the building. So a great deal of time was spent on integrating lattices and wire roping from grade all the way up to the third level. So that in the winter, many of these vines, being deciduous, would not have their leaves on, and you would get more sunlight into the building, while in the summer, when we need shade, we would have that shade. So, as regarding access, I don't know if you can make it out or not, but you can see level 1 is earthbound at the very bottom of these images. Level 2, on the left side of each of those images, you can see, particularly on the left one, the image of a person, yeah, on level 2. So that is a walkway that runs parallel to, and we have created a handicap ramp on the north end of the building and on the south end of the building, so that if you're in a wheelchair, you can get to level 2 without issue. We also have added a handicap lift. If you go back to the first slide, between the barn and what I call the common house, so that knuckle where the building shifts in orientation on the left side there. The long skinny building is the barn, and the right end of that skinny building is now a handicap lift, so that if you live on Hillside Avenue and you're disabled, you can quickly go from Hillside Avenue down onto the patio and visit the common house area. Previously, you had to go a long way around to get there. It just didn't jive as far as I was concerned. I just didn't think that was good design. So the two critical elements that led to submitting the minor mod to the planning board were handicap access and improving the or reducing shade and the height of the building altogether. So where it was 4 living levels, it is now only 3 living levels. I think those are the critical items. Setbacks all remain the same. The street width is consistent with the original drawing. Setbacks, worth explaining because it could be confusing. Slide number 3. There we go. So I know that looks like 2 stories, but actually, in the gable, we wanted to maintain an architectural rhythm to the building that spoke to the rest of the site without doing exactly what was done everywhere else, getting redundant. So those gables and the flanks of them are ideal for solar panel siding, because they face due south. And the leftmost one, which is the common house end of the building, that would be a greenhouse, exactly, on the top of that. And we're doing that just because the greenhouses we originally wanted to do in the middle of the site were getting too much shade. So again, we're sort of chasing the sun and handicap access. I believe that is it. Let me just check my notes. Yeah, no, that's all there is to the request. And the request is simply, will the board accept, I guess,
I
the
can,
information?
I think, and thank you, Mr. Hall. I appreciate the presentation, clarity, and certainly the maps and the guidance changes. The summary of the proposed changes, just for the board members, is formally listed as the restoration of parallel parking plan, reduction in building massing facing west, and the removal of a fourth floor. The technical means by which this is before us, a minor modification, is that our permit was among the panoply of permits, principally planning and others, but we were involved in the original permitting, so any change, even if it's a fluctuation change, that renders us, making two left turns and basically be going the opposite direction or be going in the same direction, it is still before us, so it doesn't seem to be substantive. But we'll go through the deliberations and we appreciate the presentation. So with that closed, why don't we go to any public comment? Does anyone in the room or in line wish to speak or have any questions in connection with this? If I haven't said so before, in connection with any future public comment, we will ask that during public comment that you kindly just give your name and address for the record so that Ms. Joy can record it. And we invite you to feel free to speak in favor of, in opposition to, or neither. If you so choose, you are not obligated to pick a column. You can simply rise and be heard, and we will very happily hear what you have to say. We do ask that you kindly take the mic only insofar as being able to broadcast your remarks very clearly to anyone who's listening. We have about 7 folks online. So anyone in the room wish to speak? Seeing again, no hands. Anyone online wish to speak in connection with the application that is before us? I see no hands up. I will close public comment. We'll go to questions from the board. Begin with Mr. Delisle, and we'll go to Mr. Swanton and Mr. Ginter.
Mr. Hall, in terms of the second piece, which is, you said, to remove the fourth floor, can you just show me that on the graphics again and just make that so I understand what it was before and what it's going to be now?
So, well, you can see very well, actually, in the top 2 versions, there are 4 levels of living.
Okay. Can I interrupt?
Yeah.
Okay, so that is what the plan shows, but that's not what the buildings look like on.
We are,
This for something that hasn't been built.
hasn't been built.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, no, this is, yeah. And the bottommost, which is today's deliberation, those gables really are there at the behest of the planning department, that they were also seeking similar rhythms to the rest of the project. We understood that, but what we did was make that really simply a apparatus, a gable apparatus to hold solar panels, but not be occupied. And it's the size of that area is shrunk considerably so that its depth to the viewer front to back is much thinner. So it's further away from the viewer of this elevation. So level 1, 2, 3, and then the rooftop solar gables all step back in sequence away from the viewer in this elevation.
I see, okay. And now, with respect to the design element of the proposed modification, does that drawing capture the design elements, or does that kind of just look like it is trying to?
Maybe could you repeat that question? I'm not quite sure I understand.
Well, on the approved modification.
Yeah.
You can sort of see the windows and some, little siding or something
Right.
like that, but on the one that's proposed, it's kind of just amorphous, or it lacks sort of any defining characteristic.
Right, so what's going on there is that there are patios that are plugged into the facade, so the facade is not monolithic.
Oh, okay.
So there are little patios tucked in and they all step back in.
Which goes with what you were saying.
Exactly. So units have a bit more sunlight,
Yeah, no, that largely is much more helpful.
yeah, and you
When
can
it
see
was-
the railings.
Yes,
there now.
yes, because at the smaller resolution, it just looked like a
Yeah.
purple log. Yeah, okay, I understand that.
Let's see. Mr. Ginta. Oh, Larry, your microphone's muted. You just want to mute it. Thank you. There you
I don't believe I have any questions. I think the question that was just answered sort of revealed everything to me. I understand what we're doing now.
All right, very good. Mr. Swanton. Your microphone's muted as well. Okay. Very good.
Yeah, I appreciate Mr. Delisle's question, and he addressed what I was curious about. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. I don't have any further questions out there. Unless there's anything further from any of us, I will close questions. And do we have any deliberations on the minor modification?
I'll start. Yes, I think that, you know, based on what has been previously approved and what we've been discussing this evening, I think we can deem this to be a minor modification. We're kind of changing the orientation of the parking spaces and then shrinking the building. So I think we're okay to, in my opinion, treat this as a minor modification.
Good. Mr. Ginta, Mr. Swanton, anything further?
I agree.
And I too agree, shrinking is minor.
Yep, I agree as well. I don't have anything further to add other than the applicant, Mr. Hall, has done continuous and continues to do continuing good work on this project. And a project like this requires tweaks in real time, and I appreciate the forthrightness to come and address them as they arise. This is very minor to me as well. All right, nothing further. We'll close deliberation. Do we have a motion and a second to approve the minor modification as requested by the applicant?
I'll make the motion for treating the proposed modification to 17 Cottage or Hillside Ave as minor.
I'll second it.
All right, motion is made and seconded to deem the request for modification to be minor and to approve the requested changes, which is the restoration, may I add this, the restoration of parallel parking plan and reduction in building massing facing west and the removal of the fourth floor. The friendly amendment with Mr. Delisle's motion and Mr. Swanton's second. I'll call the roll. Mr. Delisle.
Yes.
Mr. Swanton.
Yes.
Mr. Ginta.
Yes.
And I vote yes. That's for the affirmative. The ayes have it. Motion carries. Minor modifications approved. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you very much.
Have a good night and good luck to you. Moving on to our next application, which is our first public hearing. This is the, and just for the record, we're noting that the application for 8 Brown Avenue by applicant's request has been withdrawn without prejudice. Let's just, do we have any comments on that? And if not, we can just allow that to be withdrawn without prejudice. And I'll just call a roll call vote.
Do we need to make a motion?
Yeah, we'll just make a motion on the applicant's request to withdraw without prejudice. And the second. Very good. Thank you. Motion's made by Mr. Delisle. We have a second.
Second,
Thank you, Mr. Swanton. Motion on the applicant request to withdraw without prejudice, 8 Brown Avenue is made and seconded. Calling the roll, Mr. Delisle.
Yes.
Mr. Swanton.
yes,
Mr. Ginta.
Yes.
And I vote yes, that's for the affirmative. The ayes have it. Motion carries. The application is withdrawn by applicant's request without prejudice. Going to the first live application, this is the application being represented by Mr. Nicholas Longtree on 234 Merrimack Street. There are 3 pieces to the applicant's request. The applicant seeks all necessary permits, permissions, approvals, and board review for a special permit to allow the demolition of structure within the Demolition Control Overlay District, the DCOD. The second piece is a special permit to allow a multifamily use 1 of 3 for all 4 units. And third, a variance relief for frontage and lot area for multifamily. May we hear from the applicant?
Good evening, Nick Landry from DRT. So I guess I'll run through this presentation.
Absolutely. And feel free to, you can run through it all together. We'll take separate votes, consider it separately, but present it as you see it.
Feel free to interrupt me. Good evening. We're here for 234 Merrimack Street, which is the building on the right-hand side. It's the white building. We're proposing, currently there's a 2-family there today, and we're proposing 4 units. And I'll get back into these renderings in a second if we can go to the next page. So I think this font is very small. So this is calling out the special permits that were just discussed. And we can go to the next sheet. So our lot, our proposal is it's highlighted in blue there. And what this shows is the front setbacks. So we're actually proposing to move our building so that it aligns with the surrounding neighborhood. We can go to the next slide, please. So here you can see this is a site plan showing Merrimack Street on the bottom. Our project is the one kind of in the middle that has the square boxes that go along the driveway there. What those boxes are, those are changes in pavement. So we have a combination of bluestone and asphalt kind of going down the lot. And then at the rear of the lot where it's a fire truck, is that big thing parked in the back, just showing that we can get a fire truck access down there. And we're going to be using like a plastic geo grid that goes within the grass. So the grass kind of goes over it. So it'll all look like a lawn. You won't see the grid, but it allows trucks to drive on and not get stuck. So I think one other thing to note from this site plan is we're also proposing to replace the sidewalk with a brick sidewalk. We'll be adding a tree as well from the building. You can go to the next slide, please. So this, I think the thing to take note on this zoning map, you can see that there's an arrow kind of in the center of the page with some right there, exactly. So that's site, and we're in a residential area, but I think it's zoned industrial because at one point there was a fruit factory on this site, and it seems like maybe that's why it was zoned this way, and that's why we're here tonight proposing the variance. Go to the next sheet. This is an assessor's map that we've found, kind of showing that factory that was on the site. As you can see, it's quite a bit deeper than the building where the building is today. And it looks like somehow it was 3 addresses. We're going back to about where that building was. It looks like there was another building behind it at some point. Go to the next slide, please. So this is a view of the 234 Merrimack today. So it's a gambrel facing the street. And it's in, we'll see in a minute, it's in stated disrepair. There's some major structural issues with the building, both with the foundation and the floors. We'll see some pictures of that as we continue on it. And the picture on the right-hand side kind of shows it from an angle. And you can see the restaurant to the right. And then the picture on the bottom kind of shows the rear of the lot. Go to the next slide, please. And these are just some other photos, some of the buildings in the area that we were trying to pull some inspiration from. The thought with the design was that we would kind of mimic these this style on the street side and not the gambrel. I know our neighbor to the left is a gambrel, but it's actually rotated 90 degrees. Go to the next slide, please. Again, some more site photos. I'm sure everyone's familiar with some of the larger buildings around the area. Go to the next slide, please. Again, these are just some photos from the rear of the lot, in the park behind us, kind of looking back at our front. Next slide, please. So, what we have here is our proposed footprint, and that's the dark, kind of the dark gray shaded area in the center. We're within the setbacks on all three sides of the building, and then we're meeting that front yard down middle setback. The rear yard setback's about 100 feet, and as those notches in the building go down the site, the building height kind of steps down. And so right now, the rear of the building, I think we've kind of mentioned this earlier, is gonna end up right about where there's a shed on the property now. That's that little light square right there. So the building will end right about there, and then there'll be, like I said, about 100 feet of open area till we hit the rear of the property. The next slide, please. So this is kind of this is a good illustration of how that stepping will occur. So we're gonna, each one of these buildings, each one of these sections is a townhouse. So there'll be parking with some living area, and then, you know, the main living area on the second floor, and then the third floor will be some bedrooms. And that kind of continues down the site and steps down as we go. I think we've got the calculations for the mean site, the mean building height, which I think is far below 35 feet that's allowable. We go to the next slide, please. So this is a rendering, or a rendering from bird's eye view showing the existing building. You can see, if you go to the next slide, please. So we're gonna end up about 30 feet beyond the building to the right of us, which is the green building. And then it'll be another 100 feet beyond that to the rear yard setback. Go to the next slide, please. So this is a report from a structural engineer just documenting. You go to the next slide, some of these photos that talk about cracks in the foundation. You know, I can tell you, if you drop a marble in this house, you're not going to find it. So, you know, I think, and there is some, and it does have a full basement today, and I'm sorry, I meant to mention this earlier, we will not be putting basements in, so there was some concern about what we might do to affect the groundwater of the neighboring properties. All of these will be a slab on grade with the parking, so we won't be digging out. Go to the next slide, please. Again, just kind of, you can see some of the cracks in the foundation walls. So you keep going. There's some roots that are popping through in the corner. So I think it's, and there's also some temporary columns that have been there for a very long time. You can see that column that's got the screw top to it. Can you go to the next slide, please? Excuse me. So this is a kind of a view from the front where we can see the existing house, how it's kind of set further back. It doesn't quite align with the rest of the street. We're going to be pulling that up. We'll be replacing the sidewalk, adding some landscaping at the front of the building, and also adding a tree on the sidewalk. And we're also, this shows a fence on the left-hand side. We're also going to be adding a fence on the right-hand side at the end of the green building, all the way to the back of our property. And next slide, please. So this kind of outlines the why we're here tonight. So the first point is the DCOD special permit. So we went from the historic committee, and I think that this building doesn't seem to have any historical significance. It has structural deficiencies. The historic committee had visited the site, and I think they found that there to be no historic significance. And there were a couple comments that came from that historic meeting, and one of them was the trees in the front. And they asked if there's anything we could do to kind of dress up or minimize the look of the garage doors and the entry doors on the right-hand side. And they also didn't like that we originally had asphalt on the entire driveway. So to address the asphalt, we've broken it up with these bluestone aprons. And And we've added some vegetation along the side. We also added a window right at the front corner, and we simplified the roof overhangs at all the garage and entry doors to kind of minimize, there used to be two and now there's just one. Just kind of simplify that facade. So the second, we're here for a special permit for the multifamily. I think that this aligns with the zoning regulations and permitted uses within the district, on all of the neighboring properties. Mentioned that earlier. As far as the public benefit goes, we're replacing a deteriorating structure, and adding housing stock to the community. And I think we had come up with the number of units to align with the building to our left. We're in a building, and then for the variance, this lot is a pre-existing non-conformity. It's not wide enough to meet the zoning, so it's not anything that we're doing to change the lot, subdivide the lot. I think it's a reasonable use in that it fits in with the neighborhood. Zoning compliance, we meet all of the zoning, like I mentioned before, setbacks, building height. So I think all that kind of further illustrates how this particular lot seems to be better zoned as residential. There's anything else I could circle back on? Any questions?
We may, but if you want to mention anything further before we close the presentations, we may circle back to questions. So if we have questions or questions come up, I'll certainly give you every opportunity to ask and address them. So,
Yeah, I think that's
okay, very good. Thank you, Mr. Landry. We will go ahead and close the presentation portion of our public hearing and go to public comment. Anyone in the room who wishes to be heard in connection with the application, kindly just raise your hands. Thank you. And if you don't mind, again, if you wouldn't mind coming to the microphone so our online members can hear
Need the mic.
you. I'm sure. That's all.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm the owner of the building next door.
You give your name and address.
Oh, Dan Donahue?
Sir.
I'm one of the owners of the building next door,
Which side?
right-hand side, the big green building. I did have some concerns. One was flooding, because the place does flood very well. Good portion of the time, but Merrimack River ends up in the back of the building. My other concern was snow removal. Since the driveway is gonna be right next to my building, the snow is gonna eventually go lay against my building, which actually produces a problem for me. For me, when I have my building plowed, everything goes right out back where the trees are and everything else. So I have least amount of stuff. I did talk to him earlier. The other one is I wanted a fence between because I have problems with people. We'll use the word trespassing. Using the dumpster I have out back to my tenant. And people parking out back. Find out if there was no fence. People would just say, I'm having a party, I'm having my friends park over there, and the heck with the business that's there right now. Business that's there now opens up about 11 o'clock, closes around 10. So the place is empty after 10 o'clock. I don't think there'd be a problem with the tenant, but the people who would be on the townhouses or condos, whatever you want to call them. That's about it. You know, my main concern.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Anyone else wish to be heard?
Hi,
Good evening.
good evening. My name's Rudy King. I'm at 240 Merrimack, direct abutter. I'm representing two people tonight, myself, and I'll mention the other person in a moment. He is traveling right now, so he's not able to be here. So we appreciate your patience in letting us present his opinions as well. I'm going to read his verbatim, and you'll find out who he is. Good evening. I'm the owner of two condos immediately abutting the property in question. For completeness, I am also a homeowner of 23 Ting Street
the owner of a business called Newburyport, with offices at 4 N Street. My ties to Newburyport are deep. I've lived here since 2013 and am raising my 3 children in the public school system. We live, work, and play in this wonderful community. I'm traveling for business today and have therefore asked my friend and neighbor, Rudy King, to read this letter on my behalf. I was alarmed to learn of the proposed construction project at 234 Merrimack Street. While that property has long been in need of renovation, indeed demolition, the scale of the proposed project is altogether inappropriate and unseemly. It is radically out of character with the surrounding properties. To boot, I was dismayed that the developer made no effort to consult the abutting homeowners before proposing a project of this magnitude, especially one that will so permanently and irreparably change the character of our quaint neighborhood. It is not my impression that Newburyport is in need of more high-end luxury condos. Indeed, it was my understanding that further subdivision or so-called infill had been strongly discouraged for years now. I hope the zoning board will consider the advisability of a project like this and the precedent it sets, after so much hard work has gone into eliminating these types of infill projects. Alas, if the project is to proceed, I'm in favor of the developer scaling back its size. Specifically, I would like to see the footprint end somewhere between where the current structure ends and where the shed currently sits. I'd like to see the footprint, including the driveway, conform with the nearby properties rather than setting new standard that entire lots can be fully developed with almost no green space. One of the many reasons we love our neighborhood is the large green space in our backyard. I'd like to better understand the plan for parking. Increasing the number of residents on this property will be a factor of at least 4, will invariably lead to more street parking, which is already quite dangerous as it stands. If the project is to proceed, I would like to see appropriate dedicated parking be required without consuming the green space. Indeed, I would like the Conservation Committee to opine on the impact of this project beyond the tripling or quadrupling of impermeable surface. The site plan would seem to suggest that a number of trees, including a large historic one, will be removed. That should not be allowed. If the project is approved, I would implore the developer to replace the dilapidated fence that separates our properties from the soccer field. It is an admission that week in and week out, we have visitors from neighboring communities descend on the soccer field. For them to see that falling down rusted fence is their impression of Newburyport is an environment that we should be ashamed of. If nothing else, let it at least make some lemonade out of this lemon of a project. Respectfully, Mark Andirek, 240 Merrimack Street, owner of units 3 and 4. So that's his opinion. This is my own. Since owning a condo at 240 Merrimack Street since 2006, residing in the same since 2012, I've seen changes around town related to development for residential housing. I will not say this is not good for the town, or that the town does not need it, but to be fair, it is locations and use that must be thought about for the benefit of location and not the simple use of developer. When Mr. Costello bought the 234 Merrimack property, I had a discussion with him one day shortly after, and he discussed that he needed the zoning to change so that he could make it a 2-unit or multifamily unit consisting of 2 units. Well, it's obvious to me that since then, Mr. Costello has rethought about the function of the property. I'll be real about this. People change their minds. I get that. I just did not see the major change that was going to be asked for. Currently in our area, there is not that much green space outside of Cashman Park abutting the said property. The 234 property currently has fairly significant green space that is going to be significantly reduced by the proposed project. This is due to its proposed length of 130 feet for the condos alone. The plan also calls for a turnaround area to allow turnaround for emergency apparatus, also reducing the green space. I personally do not want foot traffic by a neighboring property across my lawn to take the easiest route to Catherine Park while I'm entertaining in my own backyard. According to the proposed site plan, there is a 10-foot setback on both sides of the structure. Without looking too hard, I'm not sure I agree with the front left corner of the current house that it has a 10-foot setback currently. This project is too big for the neighborhood, as this is a neighborhood of pretty much the same size housing on both sides of the street. And from Kent Street to Phillips Garage, there are 9 streets. And all the houses are pretty much equal in size and scope, and meant to keep the aesthetic appearance for 11 area. In Newburyport, overall, the proposed property does have a nice looking facade, but it's oversized for the area. Traffic and parking, the proposal suggests no significant impact to traffic and parking. Ask anyone who wants to find a parking spot near the Cameron restaurant. Yes, the Cameron does offer some off-street parking, but very little. The overall project does not fit in with the neighborhood and takes away the small town feel. Now, should the special permits and variances get approved, I implore the developer to think about 2 things. One, talking with the city maybe and helping replace that dilapidated fence that we were talking about. Also, the idea that maybe the developer can think of using or the separation of the 10-foot setback between our properties as maybe a planting ground, or maybe shrubbery or something that separates the property and gives delineation clearly to both sides. And that shrubbery to probably be no more than 5 feet, 4 feet high. That is my personal thoughts. This is Mark Andrews' thoughts, and I appreciate your time in listening to what we have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other comments in the room? Yes, ma'am.
I am the other half of Mr. King. My name is Patty King, and I live at 240 Merrimack Street, apartment 2. We are husband and wife, but we certainly have different opinions, so I want to express mine. They're pretty much the same as my husband's, but we purchased this house 18 years ago, mainly because of the quaintness, the water view, which was very important to us. It's a safe town to walk on, and we had plenty of land in the front to play. None of our lawns are divided by a fence. We have the neighbor next door, whose name is Barbara Dunbar, and I'm speaking on her behalf as well. And she has a wonderful backyard. We do as well. And then there was the house that's going to be demolished. So we have this wonderful green space that's stretching. We don't necessarily want to have fences blocking everything. I don't care if they make good neighbors. We've been good neighbors with them. I don't think that's necessary. And I agree that the style and proposal of the condos are very much out of scale for the neighborhood. I mean, you all know Merrimack Street very well. I don't have anywhere to show any other board members these, but these are what we have in our neighborhood now. This is what we have. And they're wonderful. And I know that Nick, sorry, I don't remember your last name, is going to have the front of the buildings look just like the others, and that's fabulous. And we appreciate the thought that's gone into that. The problem we have is the back. It is far too long, far too big. This, if you have a plan, I think he has the little shed that's down here in the back. This is his current place that he's tearing down. This one is ours. This one is the Dunbar house, and all of them from the back, you can see they all go together. Same thing with the one over here on this side. Nothing is out of context like this condo is. This condo is going to be spreading 2 more house lengths toward the river from that shed, which is a lot. Now, he mentioned water and they weren't doing any digging, and I was really happy to hear about that because we have a very high water table. The water doesn't necessarily all come from the river, it comes from the road, and when it comes down, it goes down our driveway and it goes right into our basement, and we're not allowed to get a sump pump, or we can't get a sump because there's too much of groundwater. So this is what they have now for a picture. This is the back that I was talking about. It shows the other 2 houses, and that's yours. And again, they're all in line. And if you can see on his place, it goes all the way down. This is his land. This is the shed that goes with his land. You're going to have 2 more houses, 2 more condos beyond that shack, garden shed, going toward the river. Totally out of scale with the rest of the town. And this is what that land looks like when it rains heavily. All that water is completely covering Cashman Park. Completely covers it, goes into our grass and over to his, and it certainly will come up to where he's planning on having the fire truck. Will take down at least half of the little bit of green space that he has. So those are very big considerations. And so I'm speaking on behalf of Barbara Dunbar, who lives in the yellow house. I don't know the actual address. And also for Noretta Lutinger, and she lives directly across the street. One of these women just had surgery and the other one is just too old to come out at night and be here, but they wanted us to speak on their behalf. So what we would like to do, as well as what Dan said, is we would like to offer them to scale back the proposal to at least two or 4. You could have still four condos, but up and down like everybody else has in the neighborhood, and the bottom and top, and take those 3 and 4 out of the equation completely. The driveway that's going to circle around would be a lot closer to the buildings, and you'd have more green space in the back. And it would allow owners to have their children playing back there, which I don't think they're going to be able to do. So I think some people think it's an asset to have condos like that because obviously they're going to be very expensive. I don't know if that's true because I'm of the opinion that they are so out of character in our neighborhood that I think they might be a detriment to anyone else who want to sell in our areas. And if it's not, and I'm wrong, what's going to happen is our taxes are going to go up because once those buildings go in, you're going to raise our taxes too. We plan on going up feet first, and I don't care. But I don't want my taxes to be going up incrementally that I can't. So thank you for hearing me, and I'm very happy, Nick, that you had showed me those when you had some concessions, but we really want 2 there and the 3rd and 4th one gone. Thank you.
Thank you, very good. Anyone else in the room wish to be heard? Seeing any further hands? Seeing no hands in the room, we will go online. And is there anyone online that wishes to be heard? I see one hand raised and it looks like it's an iPhone, John Wardwell. Mr. Wardwell, if you can hear us, if you could unmute your mic, we'll go ahead and do the same. And you have the floor.
Hello?
Hello, we can hear you.
Hi. Yeah, I'm a resident of Newburyport, live on 39 State Street. And as I look at Merrimack Street, it's a wide variety of housing stock and buildings and service stations. There's a very wide variety. which is pretty similar to Newburyport's housing stock. And I think one of the nice things about Newburyport is that there is so many different style houses in different areas. And a lot of them were built in a time before zoning regulations, so the setbacks aren't consistent. So I think that it fits well and that the open space that is left is more than most projects have when they do a project. I'm not sure. I'd have to ask Nick what that open space is. I would propose that he put in permeable pavers on the driveway so the water would not run down towards Cashman Park. But I think that there's multi-family houses and they look different, but I think it's a good use for such a large lot.
Very good. Anything further, sir?
Nope, that's it.
All right, thank you. Anyone else online? We have 6 folks online. We've heard from one of the 6. Anyone else wish to be heard before I close public comment? Seeing no new hands online, no additional hands in the room. I'll close public comment. We'll go to questions from the board. Mr. Lott, any questions?
Yeah, sorry. Can I think this got left out of the presentation. What is the gross square footage of the building? And then what is the square footage of each unit? And also, what's the footprint of each unit and the footprint of the overall?
So the overall building footprint is, I think it's about 30 by 100. There's a site plan of illustration that illustrates that. The unit sizes, so the total building size, including some unfinished space, is about 9,800 square feet. And each one of the units hovers right around 2,000 square feet. So some of them are 2,000, some of them are 1,800. And each of those would have a 2-car garage.
So that's 2,000 square feet or 1,800 square feet of living only, and
Yeah, and then there's some garage space and then some unfinished space to get to that 9,800.
I see. Okay. Another question I had was relative to the drainage. Is this your last stop for permitting, or do you have to go to the planning board as well? Because I saw on in one of the presentations, there were some plans that maybe said like planning board rendering. So I was wondering if you had to go to the planning board, this is the last stop.
I think that was us using the wrong term.
I see, okay.
And as far as, I think, John, the last gentleman that was on there, mentioned permeable pavers, and I think that's something, the strategy for the paving would be a combination of permeable pavers, the geo grid, and then we'd also have a on-site, water drainage system with some dry wells.
Yeah, the thing that worries me there is that you do have those soccer fields behind, and those soccer fields are wet anyway in the spring, and if you're, if you've got rain coming down and you're putting, the 30 by 100 feet of shingles, roofing shingles, plus pavers combined with asphalt, what kind of water are you pushing down into the park? And I think, that like, we're hearing from your neighbors as well. And then we have to think as members of the board, one of the things you mentioned initially was the public benefit. So we have to look at public detriment too, I think. And I'm concerned about that issue. And I don't know if you guys have done any sort of study or if there's any study that the city needs to do, if the Parks Department has weighed in on this or not. Because
So-
it would be a detriment if those fields became, you know, unusable for more time than they're unusable.
Yeah, as far as the runoff from the roofs, that will go into Coltech, you know, stormwater management tanks that we could, you know, place along the site. Which I think, you know, currently there is no management of the runoff from the existing, right? And so I think we'd be able to, we have a civil engineer on board who's actually looking at the grading and how we would adjust. And I think right now, the rear of this, the rear of the building is about where that shed is, and I think from the photo, we still have some area before that flooding occurs. But I agree, you know, between some berms, because we're not gonna, we also don't want the water running off into Dan's property. So there'd be, I think, and that's part of the reason why we had those, the bluestone pavers, and then, you know, we could do, like has been brought up, permanent pavers with some sort of Coltech system below there, at each one of those blocks. So I think, and I agree, there will be some engineering that has to be done, but we have not spoken with the Parks Department yet. But I think that we can achieve it with our site, and like I said, our civil engineer has looked at it, he seems to think that we could. I think right now, we haven't seen any signs of water in our basement. I think you mentioned that you do get water in your basement.
Yeah.
Yeah. And knowing that we're not gonna have a basement does give us some room there, we could also have some stormwater management underneath those slabs. Does that answer?
That answers that question, yeah. And then the final question I had was, had you considered, because the mass is really, you know, a big mass, and as you noted, 30 by 100 feet. Had you considered or looked at breaking that into two buildings? Because I think there are some vehicles in the zoning ordinance that maybe, I don't know if you qualify for that or if you could do that, but there are things that we have seen come before us in the past where developers have looked at doing two buildings instead of one to break up the mass and make it fit more within the historical fabric of a neighborhood.
I think the thought behind this design was to try to keep the building as tight, narrow from the street, fitting in, that facade fitting in with the street, and then keeping the building as tight as we could to the street, opening up, you know, that 100 feet of area we have both behind the building that essentially is open green space. I think, you know, and we did, so right now, we're pretty tight with the fire truck access. I think this was mentioned earlier, we reviewed with the fire department kind of how the turning would work and the width of the driveway. They would really like to see this 20-foot wide driveway. So I think that kind of limits how we could, you know, like we were to rotate the building. I think it would kind of limit how they could turn that truck around. So that was the kind of logic. We were trying to break it up by stepping it down again to try to minimize that feeling of a larger building. I think we could increase, one thing we could do is maybe we could increase the drop between each one of the units so that, you know, if we modify the grade a little to drop it, you know, like say a foot or so between from unit to unit, that's something that would help kind of then identify them a little bit more. So you can see right now that the first two, the roofs align. You know, one thing we could do is maybe drop that second unit down. Look at the top elevation.
I see what you're talking about.
Okay.
You still have this giant extrusion going.
Yeah.
Towards the river. Yeah, and I know you have in your design made, you know, certainly efforts to try to make them look like distinct units or distinct buildings or structures on their own, but yeah, I understand.
Yeah, we're kind of set in with 20 feet for the driveway, then we need 20 feet to park the car inside the house, plus a little space beyond that, and then we've got a 10-foot setback on the other side.
Yeah, I understand.
Any other questions?
No.
Mr. Swanton, any questions for you?
Yeah, I heard several abutters talk about the scale of the project. I was wondering, Caitlin, could you put up the zoning matrix? So currently the house is a single-family house, correct?
I think it's technically a two-family, it's being lived in as a single family.
I mean, the assessor's records show it as a one-family house. and your submission, not this particular chart, but it said the existing state was a single family, so I'm confused. Are the assessor's records correct? Is it a one family or is it?
It's definitely being used as a single family too.
I'm sorry, what was that?
It's definitely being used as a single family too.
A single family has a minimum lot area of 10,000 square feet, according to this chart here, and you have 15,000 plus. But a multifamily requires 20,000 square feet, and you don't have enough area for a multifamily, which I guess is one of the big reasons you're looking for a variance. I guess my question is, usually when somebody applies for a variance, it's because they have a very unusual shaped lot, and yours is a rectangle, or maybe they have a lot that has some incredible slopes or some massive wetlands, and those don't really apply here. I'm wondering, why do you think this lot should get a variance to allow a multifamily building on such a small lot?
I think it's in keeping with some of the neighboring buildings. I think the lot is, the depth of this lot, as we heard, is the rear portion of the lot is quite usable, and there is a bit of a slope on the lot. But I think like we talked about, the building to the left is a 4-unit building, which is kind of how we had come up with the 4-unit design for this building. There are other multifamily buildings in the area.
Yeah, I realize, but I mean, we have to live with the zoning that we have, and the zoning for this lot is single family unless you have more than 20,000 square feet. So, I mean, we could grant a variance and take care of that, but that is something I'm kind of sticking on here. Also, the scale of it, the assessor's records say the current living area is 2,400 square feet. And I think I heard you say earlier that you're going to have 4 2,000 square foot buildings. So it's going to be more than triple the area. Is that correct?
Well, I think the existing building is larger than that, larger than 24. We're about doubling the footprint of the building. And it matches, that footprint aligns with the footprint of the building, the original building that was on the property, I think back in the 50s. Which is another reason where we had got that depth of the building from.
Okay, I mean, usually we rely on the assessor's records, but they aren't always correct, so I take your input. What do you have to say in general for the abutters who said that this building's too big?
So we'd spoken a little bit before the meeting started. I think we had talked a little bit about, for example, the fences. That's something that we can certainly accommodate. I think that right now we're going, you can see on this drawing right here, we're going back to about roughly where there's a structure on the site today. There's a shed back there, and we're still going to be a good 100 feet from the rear yard setback. If we were to break this into, from 100 feet from the property line, and there's a rear yard setback of maybe 20 feet. Again, we're trying to keep this building as tight as we can to the street so that we're minimizing any views that are blocked from the neighbors. I think what was brought up about, currently being able to look over the rear yard and seeing some of the, I think the bridge area that would probably be blocked now by this, I think is something that we deal with when we take on these kind of projects. There's a view today that portions of that would be blocked, I think, but what would come from this is we would be dressing this yard up. We would be providing new landscaping, we would be providing the new fencing, and we can also, and I had said, I think As far as the fence on the left-hand side of the property goes, I think that's something that we would work directly with you guys to figure out how tall it needs to be, if it's there, where you want it. We're not by any means, we could remove it altogether, like I had said, and then replacing that fence at the rear is something we can certainly talk about. A fence on the right-hand side of the property, behind Dan's building is something we can do, and that doesn't need to be 6 foot tall. It could be, I think Dan was okay with a 4-foot fence, so that doesn't block the view anymore. And then as far as the unit size, I think these units are kind of scaled for a family, which is why we have the 2 parking spaces. I know someone brought up parking earlier. There are 2 spots per unit, plus there is that overflow area in the back where people could park on that the geo grid that we have in the rear. If they had visitors. So I think the parking we've managed to kind of provide. And so that's why, though all of those factors together are kind of how we had come up with this particular design and the size of this building.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any other questions.
Ron,
Go
I'm
ahead,
sorry,
Mr. Ginta.
Mr. Chairman, Mike Costello on the line, if I could.
Actually, if Mr. Costello, if I could just ask you to hold for a moment, allow me to go through additional questions. We'll come back to you, I promise you. Mr. Ginta, did you have any questions?
Most of my list here that I wrote down was addressed, but I am curious about the heights. The heights of the neighboring buildings versus the height of the new proposed building.
So to address the height question, and then I'm going to circle back to Mr. Costello's question. I think, or his comment with respect to these answers. Mr. Costello, we'll circle right back to you in a moment, sir.
So the building as calculated per the guidelines is 30 feet from the average proposed grade to the average height of the building. So I think right now we're going to be about right now today at the street side. So it looks like we'll be about 4 feet higher than the current ridge today. So that does put us slightly higher than the neighboring building, about maybe closer to the height of the chimney to the left of the building. Currently, looks like we're at about 29 feet at the front. And the proposed design is going to be roughly 30 to 33. And that's from the sidewalk, not from the average grade.
I see.
And how about,
Oh, go ahead, Mr. Ginta, sorry.
I was just gonna say, and the height going down the lot.
As it goes down the lot, the building steps down. The first step, I think, is about 18 inches, second step's about 18 inches, but the overall height of that building kind of remains the same. It just steps down with the grade.
Okay, so when you're talking about possible loss of viewage to the water, it's because of the additional buildings that would be there that aren't currently there, if you will. It's the actual length of the building.
That's correct. Today, if you're looking at the top elevation here, today the existing building goes about to the second garage door. And so we're proposing to add the next 2 pieces.
I see. Okay,
And then
thank you, sir.
it steps down and has those breaks on the 3rd floor as well, just to provide more daylight through the building.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Good, thank you, Mr. Ginta. Mr. Costello, you had your hand up, and as this is your application, want to make sure that you have an opportunity to be heard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the board. And I apologize. We had an unexpected death in our family this week, so I'm not there in person, but I've listened intently both to the questions and to my neighbors, and clearly, we're trying to develop that into 4 units. And if I had enough width on that property, I would preferably do it like my neighbors to the left, where everyone would have an ocean, a river view, and it would be much more marketable and financially feasible to do it. I think we've been kind of stuck with the lot that we're on, which is, as I think Member Swanton said, it's a non-conforming lot. It's a lot that is thin and narrow, but extends extremely far back. And even with the height, I listened to Mr. Gunter's question, and I wish there was a way just to bring that height down even. But I think even if you bring that down, I know that lot very, very well. I spent a lot of time there. The views are going to be, and I understand it. It's not something that I took lightly, but the views will be obstructed for the neighbors to my left as you're looking down, the neighbors that have already spoken. I do believe there's a lot of open space. I do believe the real views from that property, all 3 of those properties, are the views that go directly out to the river, so that it's almost an infinity view with river to the view to the Merrimack until it's obstructed by the new condos that were built right on the Merrimack. When those were built, I think everyone had a concern that they would take the view. And I think we've all sort of figured out how to live with that. Having said that, clearly, whatever I could do, or what we can do to minimize the impact with the shrubberies, I do believe, I had always looked at that fence out back and thought, that town fence, and thought that is, it's a sad look for Cashman Park. We would do whatever we need to do to put new fence up for that entire length if the property owners or if the city allows it. Clearly to my right, with the Donahues, we'll do what we can there. But it's a very odd part of town in terms of the way it sets up. You start with Toll to the left, then you have a beautiful Federalist was a 1-family that was turned into a 3-family. Then you go to the 1-family that it was turned into a 4-family right next to me. And then my house, to answer a question that was asked earlier, that is a single family now. The previous owner, for tax purposes, took it from a 2-family to a single family. So just to clarify, I wanted to make sure that was clarified for the board. But this is the way that makes it economically feasible. Even if I brought back 1 unit, for instance, I still, the problem is you're still going to lose a lot of that sight line, and not that we could, from our neighbors. I think the green space, when you look at the plans, the green space with number 1, number 2, 40, and mine will, from where their parking lot ends, they chose when that was built, they chose to build that with a outside parking out in the back. And that's, if you look, our structure kind of goes to where their parking goes. We don't really have that luxury. We're too tight, so we're parking underneath. And I think for the water mitigation, that water has never reached up that far. But hey, look, times are changing. But I think the way that we've designed it down below is to allow for parking underneath that with some water management pieces that may need to be there. And clearly I think we'll, whether we need to go to Conservation Commission or not, we will clearly be working with water management. But look, I've lived here my whole life, basically. I represented the area. I lived on Broad Street. I bought this house because I was going to think about living in it at one point, and then I made a move somewhere else. The house is in real tough shape. I've let a friend sort of stay there, and as I tell him, it's probably tenant as is, because I don't think I could do anything more to that property to keep it where it is. So I do think it will beautify the area. I know that it's going to take the views from my neighbors. If there's a way to mitigate that, we will go back and look at that clearly. But that's all I really wanted to say, and I appreciate you taking the time. I know it's a complex one, because and then I think I got to my house, and then you look next to me where Mr. Donahue's property is. It's sort of a mixed use, business use, a dog legs out back. Then you got a two-family, a mixed use next to that. Then you got a dentist next to that, then one house, and then Leary's. So it's an odd, area of town. And I think what we do is we brought that building up to meet, to sort of streetscape it based on my discussion with the historical commission folks that were there, that looked at it and said, hey, it would be nice to have it, look aligned. And that's why we bring the house up to the front. But look, we'll do whatever we can to mitigate. And if we get the relief that we're seeking, and that's the best I can say right now. But thank you for letting me have the opportunity to speak, and appreciate you deliberating on it.
Thank you, Mr. Costello. Would you want to say anything further?
Yes, I have a question. Could you stay there and
Yeah, sure.
help me? I had mentioned taking the third and fourth units down, and I understand all the financial issues about doing that. But even if you took the fourth one down, because look at it, you have a very small, and I say small, green space past the fourth house, the fourth unit. Then you have the driveway that's going to be for the fire truck. And then again, you have what looks like equal or even a little bit smaller for the river, which is what we're saying is you're going to have some water level there.
Yeah.
But the other thing is, if you're talking about, if you could take out one unit from the back, then you could wrap that driveway closer here and have a much larger one section for green space, rather than these two little ones that I think what's going to happen is you're going to have people taking their animals and using that as a potty place, But if you took out the fourth one, wrap that around there, and then you'd have a much larger, much more beautiful green space. And the other thing is, you just mentioned extra guest parking right there. That defeats the whole purpose of having the fire truck be able to be in there.
Well, I think, I'm sorry about the guest parking, what I think we should do is, based on what we were just saying, is we could stop any kind of paving here. And this could all be grass with a certain area that has that disc. So this would just be grass. So what we're saying is if you go to the site plan, yeah, right there. If we were to, at the end of the building, right, we have the whether it's permeable pavers with the bluestone surround, whatever it is, if that stops at the end of the last building, and then from there forward, all of that is grass with the geo grid. That way it could be driven on, but it also appears as grass. I mean, the grass grows right through it. It looks like grass. It acts like grass. It would help with the water, any water runoff, but also with the look of, then you'd get a feeling of all 100 feet of the rear yard would just be grass.
Well, I think that would be a much better deal for you. Sorry. But, but that really gives you a better way of having your tenants have some green space. It doesn't do anything for me particularly. It gets rid of the driveway that's, unsightly for us. But if you could do that same thing and get rid of that fourth unit and still financially viable for you, that would give us a way to sit on our deck and actually see something to the right. When we moved there, we could see right and left. When all the condos to the left-hand side went in, we lost all the vision of the islands and everything that we had come in for to do.
If I could, Ben, I'm going to ask it both, just so that we can finish our sort of formal process of going through the questions, board members. I do want to make sure I give you the opportunity to conclude your comments because those are important to us. But I just want to let you know, we're going to move through deliberations
Right.
as well as additional questions, but please continue. And if you don't mind, just.
No, my main thing is if you could get down to 3 units instead of 4, and then do some of the stuff that we had talked about, that would be. That would be a great compromise.
Mr. Landry, you listened to, and ma'am, I'm sorry, I forgot your last name.
Okay, yeah.
You're following what, those suggestions were, just so that.
Yeah.
Before we let,
Yeah, all right.
So this is what I'm.
okay, very good. Thank you, by the way, for that. And, okay, so I believe, Mr. Ginter, you were, have you completed your question?
Yes, sir. I'm all set. Thank you.
And Mr. Swan, anything further on the question?
Nope.
Very good. Mr. Lyle, anything further?
No,
Okay, I didn't have any additional questions either, that weren't already asked. Patty, thank you again for taking the, sort of.
oh, actually, I do have one question.
Yes,
I'm sorry. You, in your presentation, you mentioned that after you stopped with the historical commission, that you guys made some changes to the plans, to try to minimize they had asked you to do some stuff to make it fit in more historic, to the historic fabric. I think it was what they said, something like that. Can you just walk us through the design changes that you made to try to satisfy the,
Can we go to the first slide? So one of the comments originally on this first slide, that the first garage door to the left of that, there was no window, it was just siding.
I see.
And I think, and there was a lot of siding.
Yeah.
And so the comment was like, is there something you can do, whether it's landscaping, which we also added, or maybe add a window, so we modified the interior plan to add that window. And then also, there was one comment, I think one person said that, if there was something we could do with about the garage doors and kind of minimizing the look. I think somebody else said that they didn't have an issue with the garage door. What we did, we originally had a roof over the entry door, which is to the left of the garage doors as you go down, and a roof over the garage, and they were at different heights. So there was 2 roofs per townhouse, right, at different heights. So we simplified those with one, just to kind of help, make that facade more uniform. Front, we also had that driveway was just all asphalt originally. And one of the comments was, I feel like there's too much asphalt, and that's why we had broken it up like this. And I agree. I think we would do some sort of stone pavers as a surround, and then we would do permeable pavers in each of those fields. Then they had also asked that we provide the brick sidewalk. We were showing asphalt before, and then the tree. And I think the location of that tree, we're open to working with the city. So those were the big changes.
okay. Yeah, because in the report from the historical commission, they said they recommend to us, the zoning board, that we approve the request for the DCOD special permit. They're not talking about all the other relief requested. And then they say contingent upon reviewing and approving the replacement structures designed to ensure compatibility with the capital H historic capital D district. But it's important that we remember that they have charged us sort of that direction. Thanks.
Okay, very good. If there aren't any further questions, before we close out, Mr. Costello, did you have anything further that you wanted to address in the questions?
No, other than if there needs to be some variation, clearly we would consider it. I don't know how it proceeds here, but I'll leave that up to Nick. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. So we'll close questions from the board. We'll go into deliberations. Because we have 3 matters before us, I'll just ask the board members, and we'll start, Mr. Lyle, if you don't mind helping, jump right in with, we have 3 matters before us: the special permit to allow the demolition of a structure within the DCOD. We have the special permit to allow for multifamily use 103 for 4 units. Currently, the use, though it sounds like it's been at least a 2-family in the past, current use is single, so there's a special permit request for that. And then a variance for relief from frontage and lot area, because though they satisfy by the current dimensions of the lot satisfy single family use, It is not sufficient for multi-family. So, let's. Mike.
Yeah, there's a lot. I think probably the strongest part of the application, in my opinion, is for the DCOD special permit. I think that, based on the findings of the historical commission, and the report that they provided to the ZBA, also based on the evidence provided by the applicant and the materials in the presentation, I think that we're getting to a point where that I think is the strongest, here. I am a little bit, I have some questions about the special permit criteria, and I have some serious questions about the variance. So I think that in order of strength, certainly the DCOD special permit is the strongest. The special permit is a little weaker, and the variance is, there's some holes there.
Okay. Let me go lap around the rest of our members. Mr. Swanton.
I kind of concur with Mr. Delisle. I think the DCOD, normally we don't go demolishing buildings, but when the historical commission has reviewed it and they kind of concur that this one doesn't have any historic value, then that to me speaks volumes. And I think, so as was just said, I think the DCOD portion of this is fine. As I mentioned earlier, I have a big issue with the variance. I mean, the scale of the building is huge compared to what's there. If it was just that, it would be a lot, but to add a variance to it, to me, I can't support the application. Kind of that simple. I just don't see the justification for a variance. A variance is a high bar. We do not grant a lot of variances. If people would like a zoning change here, talk to the city council. But this is, we generally don't do this kind of a variance, and I don't see the reason to do it here. So I cannot support this.
Mr. Ginda.
So yeah, if we were taking a little straw poll here, the DCOD, I would vote yes on. I think we have all the evidence that's the appropriate thing to do. Multifamily, I would vote no on, and variance, I would vote no on. Some of the comments I agree with that have already been said. It was mentioned that this is a complex issue, but it's really only a complex issue because trying to build a multifamily house, replacing a single family house, and obviously a single family house would fit within the confines of the space and it wouldn't be an issue. So the sheer mass of this house and how big it is, and the fact that it's 4 houses is the struggle. So that's a struggle with giving it a variance, because there are other things that could be put on this property that would fit into the rules. So my thoughts.
Appreciate that, Mr. Ginda. Okay, Mr. Costello and Mr. Landry, before we go any further, I'm going to give you both the opportunity to, you're at a decision point here. We obviously have a minimum board, which means that to be successful on any of these, you require every one of the 4 of us. You've heard from there's at least 2 members with serious, maybe 3 members, serious or more with serious trouble on the variance and the special permit or the multifamily use change, mostly triggered by what it sounds like is the scale. And it sounds like the DCOD permit, everyone it seems like our strong holds that we all support that as well. We don't practice zoning by ambush, so we don't want to.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it.
So we want to give you the opportunity, if you'd like, we would entertain a request for continuance to attempt to better refine or think about a plan of action. But obviously you hear the numbers, the math doesn't lie. So we would give any applicant, any fellow member of our community that courtesy and that opportunity.
Well, we
Yeah.
appreciate
Mr.
that.
Costello,
Yeah, I appreciate that, Mr. Chairman, and clearly we'd like to take the opportunity to go back to the drawing board, see if there's something that's scalable that would meet both the concerns of the two members who have raised them, and maybe we could. Mr. Chairman, what was the next to do that? You withdraw. What's the procedure?
well, if you just, you're letting us know now, that you'd like a continuance, we'll figure out when, we can bring you back. How much time would you like? Obviously, we meet every 2 weeks, but that's with no knowledge of how busy our docket is for the next separate meetings. Are you looking for a month? Are you looking for?
I think we would need it a month. At least a month, yeah.
Okay.
Because I think we'll is work with the Kings.
So our next meetings, we have 2 meetings in April, 2 meetings in May. Are you looking for the first meeting in May?
I think that would be great if that's available.
It is. May 6th.
Let me just, hold on a
I'm
moment,
sorry. May 13th.
May 13th.
Yeah.
That would be preferable. If it works for you.
April, so the week of the last week.
April 22nd.
So I won't be here on the 13th. I have a family matter that has me out of pocket. So I'll be out of state.
Well, we could move to the following meeting also. I think we want to take our time. The place has been there for a long time. I want to take my time. I want to make sure that we present you with something that.
Okay, the 27th be the next meeting, May 27th. Okay, all right, so with that, members of the CBA, we have an applicant's request to continue to May 27th for all 3 applications, the special permit for use change, and the variance. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
All right, thank you, Mr. Swanton. Motion's made on all 3 to continue to the meeting of May 27th. Do we have a second? Second. Thank you, Mr. Lau. Motion's made and seconded. Calling the roll, Mr. Lau,
Yes.
Mr. Swanton,
Yes.
Mr. Ginta,
Yes.
and I vote yes as well. That's 4 in the affirmative. The ayes have it. Motion carries. All 3 matters are continued to May 27th. Mr. Landry, Mr. Costello, and folks, I want to thank you for taking the time to come this evening, letting us know how you feel. It's very important in this process. We hope we'll see you on the 27th. Good luck.
Thank you, we
Very
really
good.
appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Okay, moving on to our next application. This is the application of Mr. Charles Griffin. The property address is 10.5 Auburn Street. The applicant seeks a variance to allow short-term rental units on a parcel adjacent to the owner's primary residence. Mr. Griffin joins us online. Mr. Griffin has entered the building. Perfect timing, sir.
Thank you.
Good evening, Chuck.
My turn.
You have the floor.
Oh, boy. Thank you very much for hearing me, Mr. Chairman, other members of the board. You have the first slide. So there you can see an aerial view of the jail property and the part that we're talking about. We're just talking about the front portion that joins Auburn Street and reaches back into the courtroom. Next slide, Katie. That shows that in plan view, it's blue, it has a 10. So you can see that there's, in red, you see not the box, the dark red that runs around it. There's a 10-foot high wall. It makes it almost invisible from Auburn Street or any other street. All you can see is part of the second story of the building. Next slide. This is an axon showing how it looks. You can see the tall wall on the right, Auburn Street's on the right, not indicated. And then it goes into the courtyard. For clarification, my house is the rambling thing, 1 story on the left. It's expanded there. It's a
It's a Roman, named Greek and Roman. And then the courtyard, all these buildings face upon is part of my house. My property comes within 6 feet of the jail. The gravel you see in front of the building is part of the jail and not part of my home. So to say that this is distant or 50 feet or whatever, I didn't quite understand the letter that we got. This, I'm 6 feet away from the building. Next slide, Katie. The dark on the left, you've got the ground floor on the bottom, and the bottom left. The walls of this building are 3 foot thick. The walls facing Auburn Street is 42 inches. So the bedrooms are just 2 on the top floor, on both on the left side. And then in the ground floor, we're keeping the solitary cell to be the history room, forcing it to still use the original door and the blackened windows that are usable to the exterior. On the right-hand side of the dark building is the addition. There's a 1-story addition here that can't be seen from the street unless you're high up in the cemetery. Next, Kate. So there, all this water is on my site. Part that isn't on my property, but both my property on the same lot, is the gravel lot that runs right in front of the jail. That's 6 foot. Yeah. You can see the additions on the right, 1 story high, and the jail is on the left. Next. That's it? Okay, good. So my pitch to you is, when I came here in 1987 and drove down the street of the realtors and saw Bartlett now, and then beyond it, the walls and the mound and the architecture of the jail property, I kind of lost my mind. But the issue then, and it's been ever since, is what do you do with the jail? Everybody agrees it's an important building. Everybody agrees it's beautiful. Generally agrees it's beautiful. I should say not everybody. And needs to be preserved. And it has been preserved. That came about as Nick Cracknell, that I think all of you must know, planner and report previously, and today, Amesbury, said to me, you must replat your property or the courtyard will have 4 owners and go into the future in a mess. Because you can't have 4 different owners owning that. Some will want swing sets, some won't. It's gonna be a mess. So I went against the will of my wife and convinced her that we should take that project on, even though neither one of us at the time thought we would do any more. We went to the ZBA, you folks approved it unanimously, got the permits, filed the money, and did the work. So why is that important? I don't know what it is. What I would say to you today is, I don't think you could find, it'd be hard for me to understand where you could find a location where you could have your short-term rentals in Newburyport. It's more private than this. One, it has no resistance from any neighbors. There's only one neighbor that's owned by me. It's a house on the right in this picture on Railroad Street. She's for the project. I own the other 2 abutting properties. And then the city and the graveyard beyond and the part of the map. So I think it's remote, sits on a hill, 10-foot high wall, so it all but hides it. Even sounds, the granite building. If you open windows, you get sound out. I'm right across from it. So, and the people I rent to in the duplex would certainly raise promotion. So I think this is about private and quiet as it could get. So that's my request. In response to the letter, can't say that I understand it all. Just a couple of comments. Mr. McCullough's letter. I don't understand really the 3rd sentence, but I don't primary residence and a second residence on the lot. These are two different lots. 50 foot from the primary. Again, don't understand all. One thing I think about this, my son, who's there, lives in. He's the only one I know so far that would. The building is cold. I had a choice in this building to either insulate it, drywall it, try to make it into a house. But the historic people didn't want that. I didn't want that. So this is a building that's pure stone. You try to heat this as near possible. You can, if you run systems continuous. But financially, it's difficult. So the idea that I can rent this for years, I don't think they live there in winters. So if there's I don't think this is a typical situation in Newbury. He says next to last sentence, the hardship in this case is to rent long term, no hardship in this one. I would take exception. I think that it's quite possible after all these years of not knowing what to do with this building, and we had to go ahead as a resident when we put it on its own lot. Possibility. I think maybe, even though I'm skeptical about short-term rentals, about the work it takes and everything, if it works, you can find enough people who spend a week or whatever in jail. There may be enough people to make sense of it on the rental market. That's what I'm hoping. That's it. Any questions?
We will. Thank you, Mr. Griffin. Appreciate you coming in to join us in person. We'll go around the room and do our usual sort of segments, and we'll ask you questions we might have in just a few moments. Okay, so closing the presentation, we'll go to public comment. Anyone in the room who wishes to be heard in connection with the application? Seeing no hands in the room, anyone online who may wish to be heard? Let's see if we see any hands online. I see none. Seeing no hands online or in the room, I'll close public comment and go to questions from the board. Begin with Mr. Delisle. Any questions, Mr. Griffin?
So, Mr. Griffin, so getting on to the last thing, or maybe the second to last thing that you referenced during your presentation, that this is the actual stone jail, the stone jail portion of the complex. This is what we're talking about. For
Well,
this
it has an addition to it. You really live in. The jail, you sleep in, it has bathrooms.
Yep.
It has a pantry. It has an exercise room in it. They're all identical rooms. There's 8 of them.
that makes sense.
Yeah, it's a colonial house plan.
Okay.
And then adjacent to it, to try to make it livable, we built this 1-story building. Part of the kitchen and the big living. And so that's the main, and then gardens, particularly toward the street.
But in the winter and in the late fall or the early spring, it would be, you couldn't do it, what you're saying.
Oh, no, he lives there year round.
Oh,
It
okay.
has for 2 years.
Okay.
I'm just saying we don't have picture. I should have brought a picture of the inside. The blocks are very rough hewn. There's nothing flat about it. Probably in some rooms, a 3-inch projection of one block to another. It's like living in and 3 foot of stone, solid granite, is the equivalent of 1 inch of wood. Thermal, R value.
But so,
That's the problem.
but the way you view this is something that would it be marketable for someone to want to rent that? In the
I don't
winter?
know.
Yeah, that's the,
Don't honestly know.
but in the summertime, it would be nice. It would be air conditioned. Basically.
Yeah, we don't have air conditioning that works now. We're priced it today, and if this is approved, we'll put air conditioning in.
Oh, okay, so actual air conditioning, not just those big blocks of
The
stone.
blocks form air conditioning. The problem is if you open the windows or doors in the spring, it rains.
Yeah.
in the Building because it's condensation, dew point. So we have to leave it shut up in the spring. It's an awkward but beautiful and deserving property to be.
Sure, and obviously all these, the way you redid the lots, they're not merged together, so because you own them all, they're owned in some various way, so you don't have merger.
Yeah, there is no way to find. When I bought it was all one lot, but they had an option to split off another. They asked me which I want. Jim Gaines did that. He was a head planner in the day. And I took it as 2 lots. It's large. The original lot's almost an acre, I think it's 40,000 square feet or 44. Then I added to it by buying the 2 adjacent.
I don't have any other questions.
Okay, Mr. Swanton.
Yeah, I'm sorry if I repeat here because I had a hard time hearing some of the answers, but Mr. Griffin, this is your primary residence, right?
Well, yes, the house on lot 1 is my primary residence.
Right, and it's, what is the distance between the jail and your primary residence?
6 feet to the land, to the lot. If you look at the lot, 2 lots are 6 foot between them.
See,
But it's fair to say it's immediately next door.
yeah, the thing I'm struggling with here is if this was one lot and maybe there was a breezeway between them, I don't think you'd be sitting here because this would be, I think this is an unusual situation where I don't know how many of these there are, but where there's a house and another building 6 feet away owned by the same person. The other building is an historic jail that's hard to use as a year-round house. I mean, this is a very, very unusual situation. I think you've explained it quite well. I wish the person who complained about it was here to comment on, because I'd like to understand that perspective as well, but I have no other questions. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Ginter.
So it's not your primary residence, but you have a family member that lives in it?
Yes, essentially, if you look at the 2 lots, it's almost like what you call that.
And it doesn't have heating and cooling in it, but somebody lives in it year round?
No, excuse me, it has heating and cooling in it. It has radiators and it has a split DX system in the new part. It's just that it's like trying to heat the outdoors to heat the building.
I see. And so the idea is your family member would be leaving the property and then you'd like to rent it out as an Airbnb?
Exactly, so, yes. We've had a change in our family and my son is going to move in with me.
And how many units would this Airbnb be able to rent?
1 4 people at a time.
Now, you said it had 6 or 8 rooms?
There's 8 rooms, in that, 2 are bathrooms, 1 is a pantry, 2 are bedrooms, 1's storage, 1's the storage. I don't know if that totals 8.
Okay, I see where you're going here.
Yeah, it's a center, if you look at the left drawing, it's like a colonial house.
Yep, I see it now. Yep, I see it. Yeah, I have concerns because this is not what the city council wanted to do. They wanted this to go away. They wanted this to sunset. But okay, I have no more questions.
All right, thank you, Mr. Ginter. No other questions. I don't have any additional questions. But that haven't been asked. We'll close questions and go to deliberations. Mr. Lau, sorry.
Yeah, I'll start the deliberations. I'm a little torn on this because I think it makes sense from a logical perspective. But as Mr. Ginta just indicated, it comes up against what the city council was trying to do with the short-term rental unit ordinance. And so the obvious answer to that is a variance. But the part that's hard here is that it makes a lot of sense. However, it seems like the city council in their creation of Newburyport's ordinance, there was a lot of effort spent on the distinction between a owner occupied short-term rental unit and an investor short-term rental unit. And if you had come in under, before last May or whatever it was, as a investor short-term rental unit, I think you would have gotten that because that then completely the right vehicle. I think that's what Mr. Ginta was getting at when he indicated that would be sensible. So here we are in this bit of a quagmire where you're asking us, the variance would be to basically overrule what the city council specifically stated in the ordinance. I think that I'm having a little bit of a hard time with that. But I think the relief you're asking for makes complete logical sense.
Okay. Did we hear from Mr. Swanton?
We've only heard.
Okay, Mr. Swanton, what are your thoughts in deliberations?
Yeah, I mean, both parcels are owned by the same person. If they were one parcel, my understanding from the planning office, and correct me if I'm wrong, Caitlin, but if this was one parcel, they could do this because it'd be part of their house. It just happens to be two buildings. Is that correct? Or do they need to be attached?
Well, you're correct.
No, they don't need to be attached.
Right. So, I mean, this is a pretty rare situation where there's two buildings next to each other and both owned by the same person. You know, I like my colleagues have a hard time given that this city council struggled so much with this over such a long period of time, years, and finally got a ordinance in place. I have a hard time overruling it, although it just seems, one thing you could do is you could change the ownership of the parcels and make them the same. And then it sounds like what I just heard from the planning office here is that you would not need a variance. So but I guess I'm reluctant to overturn what the city council has just done.
Okay, but anything further, Mr. Swanton?
And I think I'm echoing my colleagues, or else I didn't understand them very well.
And was there anything further?
No.
Okay, thank you. I mean, I'll just voice my thoughts, and I don't disagree with my colleagues, but I want us to not forget that we have within our power, and I say this with courtesy and great respect to my colleagues. It is also within the contemplation of our city council as well as our form of municipal government, which mirrors our state government, which mirrors our federal government, that we have discretion in these checks and balances. It isn't without discretion as a board of appeals that we don't have the power, should we choose to exercise it, to make exceptions when exceptions are worthy. I think that Mr. Swanton, you pointed this out, or perhaps it was Mr. Delisle, that this is a unique circumstance and maybe more unique structure. And so for me, I'm informed by the rigor of what city council has passed, and I have respect for that. And that was a process that was deliberated and the result of many years of fine refinement to get to what we have. But I also look at the spirit of their intent, which is evident by their deliberations. It's not a secret, and I don't have to guess and leap myself into their minds. I can simply read the deliberations that I had. I'm sure many of us had. We labored over some. The spirit of it was with respect to creating a distinction between investor STRUs and owner-occupied STRUs was all about the duty, responsibility of observation through geography and presence. That it is safer for accountability and therefore better in the spirit of their read of it to have owners that are responsible and dutiful on premises, and that is a better species of STRU than an ex parte absentee investor unit, or however you wish to describe it, someone who didn't live there. However, we have the circumstances here of an owner who is adjacent, 6 feet to the lot line. The architect in both name and in every other spirit of that entire area of the redevelopment of the Galles. So the owner in common, though maybe in distinction of title, but owner in common and in person of multiple parcels, all adjacent to one another, all part and parcel to one another around that central courtyard and other structures, the historic significance of which would be, I think, an endangered species, but for those preservation efforts over many years, almost a decade. I was on this board when this applicant first came before us, Mr. Griffin came before us. And then the multiple subsequent times, I have the privilege of having been here since '02. So I remember those days. I remember what this was like before, and I remember what it was like immediately after. When I think about the spirit of the STRU, for me, I'm not as I guess I'll say, I don't feel as shackled as I feel like I should about inadvertently dishonoring the intent of our city council if we were to even consider granting something like this, because I feel liberated by the fact that the spirit of the intent is preserved and respected, in that the simple stroke of a pen would make no difference, in terms of circumstance of this application, other than to make it not necessary. The stroke of a pen and changing the title ownership can change all of this. The spirit of this is in line with what I think our city council intended to do, which was to create an obligation of duty and ownership and responsibility, and accountability for those that would operate an STRU within our city. And so for me, I kind of feel like this is that same species of STRU. It is maybe not owner occupied in title, but it is owner occupied in spirit. I think we have within our power to read them and apply whatever weight we so choose. For me, it's enough. We have the discretion, which is the unlocked door. Whether we choose to walk through it is a function of whether we feel like it's worthy of that kind of discretion. We've never done it before, so that means city council only just passed this. That means something. But I think that if there ever were an exception, this would be it. I can support for those reasons. I feel like it is, maybe a different species, but same genus of what we're talking about. And for that reason, it honors the spirit of what I think city council, by my read of their work, their good work, long work, what they were trying to do. So those are my thoughts. I don't know, obviously, Mr. Griffin, you hear the deliberations of our colleagues. You would need 4 votes in the affirmative to carry. There's obviously some reticence. So,
Hey, Rob,
yes,
Ken here. You were pretty eloquent there. I think you made an excellent point that an owner-occupied unit had somebody on site. This one does. I keep coming also back around to the fact this is a very unusual building. It's 3-foot stone walls. I mean, this is nothing else in town has this, and they're both on the same courtyard. I don't know. I could approve this with a condition that it's only applicable when these 2 properties are owned by the same person and the primary residence is next to the jail. With that condition, I could support, Rob, your perspective that this is that unusual, unique one that is within the spirit of what they were trying to do with an owner-occupied STRU. But just fits this unique situation with an old jail with 3 foot thick walls that is difficult to do something with year round without kind of destroying it historically. So anyway, I
appreciate that, that additional, commentary. Okay, this is awkward, but is there any other additional thoughts on this before we? Larry, did we come to you for deliberations? Have I skipped you? I apologize.
we did.
Yeah, you skipped me, but you had a lot of nice things to say, so that was okay.
Oh, geez, I'm so sorry.
No worries at all. I do struggle with this. This is such an unusual situation. It almost appears to be like a compound that's all owned by one person, right? But then it doesn't fit within the city council rules. And then I think, well, it could just be rented out year long. That's what the city council wants. So there are options here. It's just a question, I guess, is the house that's on the right-hand corner, is that owned by somebody else?
Yes, yes.
Streets, okay. So they would be the people if anybody was impacted by the Airbnb.
And they're supportive of this.
Thank you,
Larry,
Mr. Chairman.
anything further, Mr. Ginta?
No, sir.
Any further deliberations or other thoughts? Because, given what we've heard so far, I'm going to give Mr. Griffin the opportunity to take a pause before we take a vote.
I do have a question. Can there be this agreement that if one of these two structures is sold, that this agreement goes away?
Well, we can make any condition. We can make that condition. I think Mr. Swanton mentioned a condition, a contemplated idea of a condition that would require that any grant of relief that we might be inclined to grant would be subject to the continuation of ownership in common between the two parcels, the adjacent parcels. That condition would allow this to evaporate if that were to change.
And primary residence.
As that's correct, primary. Actually,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
really critical. So it's not just ownership in common. Thank you, Mr. Swanton. It would be primary residence and ownership in common. Which is the only thing that aligns with the spirit of the council's review of this.
This is Andy, through the chair. Just wanted to agree with the concept, I guess, that Ken had proposed there, the language we had discussed earlier today, something of that nature. So here, in essence, to address the same relationship, I guess, that the council, I think, had intended under the ordinance, but recognizing the unusual circumstances and the sort of compound that, as Member Jones had noted about the property up here, sort of unusual nature. That's the release valve that the ZBA sometimes serves in the granting of variances. That this condition could essentially memorialize and maintain that, but then immediately sever the allowance if either of these properties is sold into separate ownership, which would then deviate, what one would say, from perhaps the relationship that the council is trying to establish under the ordinance.
Thank you.
I have two more questions if we can continue to dig a little here.
Sure.
Do we have a letter from the folks on the right that they are in support of this? Because they are the only people this will affect.
I can get that letter. They've offered it, I didn't know
Yeah, only because you're gonna have a variety of different people coming in and out of there, as an Airbnb is, and they're the only ones impacted, so I would like to hear from them. And then lastly, where would these folks park?
You're gonna have to park on, Auburn Street, the same place that, my son parks. We have that whole frontage all the way from, Vernon Street to Railroad Street.
And there's no restrictions on parking there hourly or anything like that from the city?
No, matter of fact, it's even allowed for snow days that people park there.
Okay, very good. Okay, thank you, sir.
Sure.
Mr. Lyle, anything further?
I think, given the discussion that we've had here, I think that if we can get that condition that would respect, what it was the city council was doing to make the ownership tied to that right, I think I'd be comfortable with that.
I'm going to propose this, Mr. Griffin. Tell me what you think. Hearing my colleagues, it appears that at least one, if not more of us, would be comforted in our sort of deliberation if we could see something in writing from that immediate adjacent neighbor in support, because it is, I think Mr. Ginto makes a great point. It's a concern. It's not the only concern, but it's a concern. I would propose perhaps a continuance if you were inclined and wanted one. I think that, and I won't speak for my colleagues, because we'll hear from them in a moment, but it's just one voting member. I would certainly entertain a continuance to give you that opportunity as a best foot forward, so to speak. You've heard my deliberations and my thinking on it. This would certainly galvanize that, and it sounds like it may be valuable for at least one, if not more, of my colleagues. But that's really your call. It's your decision.
No, I would like to do that. I agree to a continuance to continue the conversation.
All right, members of the board, so Mr. Griffin is inclined to want to take that opportunity and take a step back and see if he can secure that additional support from his neighbor. Do we have a motion to continue, and when would you like to come back?
2 weeks.
Okay, which date?
April 8th.
Okay. Do we have a motion to continue to April 8th?
I'll make that motion.
Mr. Delisle's motion, do we have a second?
Second,
Thank you, Mr. Swanton. Motion is made and seconded by Mr. Swanton on the continuance by the applicant to the meeting of April 8th, calling the roll. Mr. Delisle?
Yes.
Mr. Swanton?
yes.
Mr. Ginta?
Yes.
And I vote yes. That's 4 in the affirmative. The ayes have it. Motion carries. We'll see you April 8th. Thank
I
you.
thank all of you for your time.
Thank you for yours. Okay, moving on to our next application, actually our last one. This is the application. Give me a second here. I just lost. Can you enlarge that? I literally reading it online, and just lost the page I had upside down. This is the application, thank you. This is the application of Cindy Singer Revocable Trust, Karen Lisa Mead, Teller and Costa LLC. The application for the property address of 5 Basin Street. Applicant seeks a special permit for nonconformities to build at grade and to build a grade second-story decks extending a nonconforming setback. Council, thank you for your patience.
Absolutely. Good evening, Chair and members of the board. My name is Ryan Clemens of Teller and Costa. Here tonight on behalf of Cindy Singer as trustee of the Cindy L. Singer Revocable Trust, and joined by Andrew Sidberg, architect of Andrew Sidberg Architects, relative to the application for a PIOD Plum Island Overlay District special permit for nonconformities to 5 Basin Street, as you said. And this project includes building second-story net-grade decks, rebuilding a dock, and renovating a garage. But the special permit is only necessary for the second floor deck. Before we get into that, though, I want to go over 5 Basin's existing conditions on the next slide, please. So this is a single-family home on Plum Island, which was originally constructed in 1959 or in between 1959 and 1964. It's not historic. And the second floor was added in 2002. It has several pre-existing nonconformities in the R3 zoning district, Plum Island overlay district, as the site plan will show in a second. That includes lot area, frontage, coverage, side yard setbacks, and FAR. The property does conform to front and rear yard setbacks, building height, open space, and parking, and this project proposes no new or changes to any of those dimensions. And so on the next slide, we have elevations of the existing property, and this is from the street. And moving around to the left, we can see on the next slide that balcony style deck on the second floor, which is where this proposed second deck will be extending from, moving along with the house. On the next slide is the rear of the house facing the basin, and you can see the larger face of that second floor deck, which is what we're proposing to expand. And we're wrapping around the house again on the next slide to see the other side elevation, which we didn't have a drawing for, but we have these photos to make up for. It was a little tight, so I've got another photo on the next slide showing that full scape, but you won't see the project from this side of the house anyways. But the on the next slide, the proposed project again is to build a second floor deck and connecting to the house, build an at-grade deck, and build and renovate a garage. But we're only requiring special permit for the second floor deck, which laterally extends along the left pre-existing non-conforming setback. And oh yes, to the garage will be used exclusively for storage, not even habitation, so it doesn't affect the dimensional requirements. The first floor deck is at grade, so no zoning relief is required for those. So because the second floor deck does extend along that non-conformity, however, we do require a PION special permit, and we request one since. Oh, sorry, it's good to have it. On the next slide, we have the site plan. On the left, we have the current conditions, and on the right, we have proposed conditions, including the at-grade first story and first story deck and dock, which have a hatch over them. Thank you, Galen. And the proposed second story deck, the subject of this permit, in that lighter, redder, peach pink color there. As you can see, it extends along the setback, doesn't exceed it, and it comes out from the side and to the rear as well. And then I'll invite Andrew Sipper to go over the proposed elevations and which more clearly show the step.
Hello, everyone. Andrew Sidford, Andrew Sidford Architects here at Newburyport. Just to make it a little bit easier to explain what you're seeing, as you noted, we're just the deck. Portion is all we're talking about. You'll note some other miscellaneous notes on that. That's the conditional drawing, talking about windows and things where the original drawings that we were given. We're here for just that deck. And it is designed to, pretty much fit in with the house, fit in with what's done on the just about most houses now. Plum Island. So you see here, it's a second floor deck master. There's a spiral stair for means of egress, and as was noted, the shape of the deck conforms with the size that was allowed. It's setbacks. And we're here because that's more than 3 feet above grade, which is why we.
And I'd like to note too that the below the deck is completely free and open for the free flow of sand and water, as we'll get into too. Thank you. All right. So this project and the second floor deck meet the PIOS requirements. First, that the proposed changes will not be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood or the PIOS than the pre-existing non-conforming structure. So the proposed alteration of the deck is not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood PIOS because the term substantially means to a great or significant extent. And when used in context of the ordinance, the board would have to find that the proposal greatly or significantly detracts from the neighborhood, which this project does not. So the neighborhood consists of 1, 2, 3-story large single-family coastal homes along Basin, Harbor, and Shore Streets, and 56th through 78th Street, all within the PIOD. Most of these homes are densely clustered, occupy a large portion of the lots, and many feature second floor and roof decks so that their occupants can enjoy Plum Island to the maximum extent as well. And I have many photos of those decks. On the next slide, you will see yellow diamonds marking where the photos of these properties were taken, all along Harbor. And on the first slide after that, we have 15 and 26 Shore Street, which feature second floor decks on the left and on the right. On the next slide is 25 Shore. This is only one angle, but that second floor deck wraps around the entire second floor, offering really great use of basin. Then on the next slide, we have 1464th Street, which has this second floor open deck backyard. Next slide, we also have a little preview of 9 Overlook Street. On the next slide is 4 Basin with its second floor deck of comparable size. On the next slide, 6 Basin, which is directly opposite the property, has a second floor deck extending over the first. On the next slide is a clearer view of 9 Overlook, which has a mixture of second and third floor decks, and we'll see the third floor wraparound balcony deck in a view. It is 14 Basin, has a second floor deck. There's that third floor balcony deck on 9 Overlook. On 20 Basin, we have another second floor deck. 28 Basin has a second floor deck and that inset balcony. 32 Basin has a first floor deck, but one that is raised and open underneath. On 36 Basin, we have a second floor deck, and 31 Overlook 2 has second floor deck and a roof deck on the third floor. On 31 Basin, we have a first floor deck above the basement there. And 1976 Street in the background has that first floor open and then second floor decks. 29 Basin, looking down the beach, has a wraparound first floor deck. 25 has an open first and second floor decks. 21 Basin has balcony style and second floor deck. It's tough to see at this angle if you were able to zoom in a little. Yeah, you can see that white picket off the, yep, thank you. Those are all first and second floor decks. We have balcony style second floor decks next to that, and then a tree is obscuring another second floor deck. And then on the next photo, we have a view of the basin and the homes on the other side, and each one with the yellow diamond above has a deck of similar style and size. Many are on the second floor, and all of them get that great view of the island too. So coming back to our project conforms the home to this neighborhood character because the second floor deck is of the same style as many of the homes on the island, and in the property's immediate neighborhood. The deck will be complementary to the home, as the neighborhood's second floor decks do as well. And this project also fulfills the PIOD's purposes of reducing damage to public and private property by floodwaters, ensuring public safety by reducing threats to property in the event of significant storm event, and preventing the occurrence of public emergencies resulting from water quality, contamination, and pollution due to flooding, because that second floor deck, as you saw in the elevations, is raised and open to allow for free flow of water and sand beneath. And in doing so, these considerations address the purposes of the PIOD. I want to quickly address the planning director's comment in the staff report, sea level rise. I think it's important to note that the comment identified that there is no particular objection to this application and that zoning still permits expansion and investment on the island. It doesn't necessarily contemplate sea level rise. Regardless, the homeowner is advised and knowledgeable about the potential impacts regarding sea level rise. So to sum up this first criteria, based upon the deck's consistent complementary style, project cannot be found to be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood or PIOD than the existing home, but will instead provide more outdoor space for the property consistent with the neighborhood and flood environmental standards. And then for standard 2 of the Pion special permit, the proposed changes cannot cause the structure to be within 10 feet of the side lot line, more than 2 stories, for more than 35 feet in height. This project does none of those. So in total, the project fits Pion's dimensional requirements and is not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood or Pion either than the existing structure. So the applicant therefore requests that the board approve this special permit. Thank you. Look forward to taking any questions.
Good. Any public comment? Good to see you. Anyone online that wishes to add to our public comment, just go ahead and raise your hand. Looks like I do not see any hands, so we'll close public comment, go to questions. Wow.
So I think the critical question for me here is, with the deck, you're not getting any closer to the neighbor than you were before.
No, we're at the exact numbers. The side setback, I believe, is, yeah, it's 11.3, and we're starting at 11.5 and running along back to 11.9. So it's not going any closer to the neighbors.
And then the rest of it goes out to the basin.
Yes, correct.
And as you had indicated, this is all up on pilings, and so you have no, this does not implicate the FAR at all.
It does not implicate FAR. There's no covering. It doesn't impact lot coverage either because, again, no roof. And yes, underneath, completely open, only the pilings themselves.
Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Swanton.
No questions?
Mr. Ginton, thank you.
No questions for me.
I don't have any questions on it. Pretty straightforward. Okay, we'll close questions and go into deliberation. Pretty straightforward deliberations. It's a special permit for nonconformities and let's see. Just pull this up. Okay. I know I always, Steve, I always lean over to you. You want to start?
The only one here.
You're the only one here.
Yeah, I think this is a situation where we have no new nonconformities and we are not creating anything here that would be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood or the Pion than what exists currently. So I'm in support of this.
Swanton, anything further?
Yeah, I would add that it's also, unlike some decks that, this one's kind of between the house and the water for the most part. Anyway, it's just a deck. I'm fine with it. I can support it.
Oh, sorry. Yes, thank you. Mr. Ginton.
I support it. It's not more detrimental. I think it adds value to the home. It's really not, it's not impacting the neighborhood at all.
I agree. I think it's a modest request. It's an elegant designed to accomplish that goal. Makes sense. And I can support it. Any further deliberations? Seeing none, do we have a motion to approve?
I like that motion.
Thank you. Mr. Delisle's motion to approve the special permit for nonconformities. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Good. Great. Motion is made by Mr. Delisle, seconded by Mr. Swanton, calling the roll. Mr. Delisle?
Yes.
Mr. Swanton?
Yes.
Mr. Ginton?
Yes.
Yes, 2. That's 4 in the affirmative. The ayes have it. Motion carries. Good luck.
Thank you all very
Thank
much.
you very much. Thanks for your patience. Okay, that concludes our public hearings for this evening. With that, we will close the public hearing portion of our meeting and go to our business meeting. And we have the minutes of our last meeting. Any changes? I think that we need to address. We have a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
And seconded by Mr. Ginton.
Make one comment. Just wanted, as a citizen. Excellent deliberations tonight. Really appreciate it. Thank you. I'm not talking about ours. I'm talking about the other. Thank you very much.
Good to see you. Thank you. Good night. Motion's made by Mr. Ginton, seconded Mr. Swanton. All those in favor?
Aye.
The ayes have it, motion carries, minutes are approved. Thank you, Gretchen. Having no further business, Mr. Port, are you still with us, Andy?
Yeah, not anything to offer unless there's any questions for me.
No, I think we're good. Thank you for being here. If there's nothing further, then do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right, motion's made by Mr. Swanton, seconded by Mr. Ginta. Those in favor? Motion carries. We
Aye.
are adjourned. Have a good night, guys. Thank you very much for being here online, Larry and Ken. Thanks for making it.